Hello lovelies, welcome to Amy of Melbourne. My name's Amy, obviously.
Today I'm going to introduce you to the MORANA skirt pattern. This is the first digital sewing pattern from Amy of Melbourne. The skirt has two views, one with pockets and one without. Our size chart starts at a hip of 105 centimetres and goes up to 185 centimetres. In inches, that is 41 up to a 73 inch full hip measurement. From the finished garment measurements, you can tell that the waistband is quite a fitted waistband, whereas the skirt has a generous amount of ease for movement and comfort. To achieve both a quality fit and comfort, we have many shaping details included in the skirt, including pleats and darts. The pattern has also been designed with 3 adaptive closure options. There will be a full tutorial of these on November 13. These options include a body accessible overlap closure, a gusset, and a full-length zip option. This digital pattern is available now on my website, so you can make your own accessible and inclusive A-line skirt pattern inspired by the 1940s. Now that you've met MORANA properly, it's time for the tutorial. Let's go!
So you have pattern piece 1, which has the pocket and also a pleat. Pattern piece 2 is the back of the skirt, and it has a dart and the big box pleat at the back. You also have pattern piece 3, which is both the long and short parts of the waistband. I also call this an overlap or the front and back. Then you have the pocket. The pocket is one piece. You need a full piece, including this part. You also need 2 pieces cut out without this section on it to make the facing. For this tutorial, nothing is going to match. This is not an actual skirt. This skirt is printed at 40% so that I can show you how to make the skirt. I'm using these 2 printed fabrics so that there is a definite right and wrong side. You want to line up the paper on the fold just here. So this is the fold line. The fabric is folded this way. This is the selvage. You want the fold line to be running parallel to the selvage. If you're using a particularly chunky zip, you may want to add further seam allowance when you're cutting out than what I have here. Once you've cut out your fabric, you need to mark in your dart placement, your zip notch, which is also the hip notch, and also your box pleat lines. You should also mark the centre back. It's important to mark this on both sides of the fabric. A trick for marking darts is to cut one leg, fold back, and then you can mark out the entire dart. I then like to turn mine over and make sure that I remark my darts on the wrong side of the fabric to make it easier later. If you're planning on stitching down any of your box pleat together, you need to make sure that you mark that as well.
Make sure that you finish all of your edges as it states in the pattern book.
Before we start putting this together, sewing things, etc., we need to make sure that we are prepping our bottom hem. This makes a big difference at the end if you pre-press this into place before you put everything together. Out of your fabric, you're going to turn up twice, or you're going to overlock and turn up once. It needs to be done up 1/2 centimetre and then 1.5 centimetres, which is approximately 1/4 inch and then 1/2 inch. Once you've finished pressing it and it's set, so leave it so that all the steam and the heat gets out of it, unfold it and do all the other steps before the actual hem. So side seams, everything, and then it's there in place, ready for when it's actually time to do the hem. To create your darts, you need to pinch together from the point to the top, keeping those 2 lines perfectly even. So from the top here, down to the point and then past it, making sure that you leave long tails of your thread once you've finished sewing.
Give your darts a really good press.
I've got it over a pressing ham. If you don't have a pressing ham, you can just do this on your ironing board. It just doesn't turn out quite as nice, particularly in this little part here at the end of the dart. I'm going to press these out to reduce bulk coming towards the centre because of the box pleat. Back darts are completed. You shouldn't really see them. That's literally the idea. To create the back box pleat, you have 3 lines. The centre back and the 2 box pleat lines. These 2 lines need to come up and towards the centre. pinch along the line and line up at the center. Pinch and then bring in towards the center. And they should meet up. Some people choose to just baste across the top here, which is absolutely fine, but you can also choose, if you flip this the other way around, put your box pleat lines together and sew down here. Once they're sewn together, you can open your skirt back out again, iron flat this section, and you will have the same box pleat effect at the bottom, but this part here over your hips will be always together. On the back side of our skirt, we've got our 2 darts here. Dart 1, dart 2, and then in our center, we have our inverted box pleat. You will either have this opening going all the way to the top until you get to your basting stitches here. It's just to hold that in place until the waistband comes on. Or you can stitch some of this closed at your hip and it creates this effect. On the inside, you will have the inner part of your box pleat here.
Definitely press your box pleat.
All of the layered lines can seem really intimidating when you're marking up the front of your skirt. If you're able to, try and turn off the other layers apart from those that you need to make this look simpler, but every single line is labelled with its size number. Once you find your size, for this I'm making the size 38, you can go over it with either a highlighter or a different coloured pen and just make sure that it's marked on there properly. Every line style is different for each size. You can see that every single line is a different style, so it's about finding those as well as the numbers. Lay your fabric out and place your pattern piece on top, and then you can mark out where these pleat placement lines go, as well as your other notches. You can make your pleats as long or as short as you want to for your own personal preferences. If you choose to include the pocket in your skirt, then this is where you need to cut this pocket piece off of this pattern piece. Alternatively, if you don't want to cut this, you can use this pocket piece and line it up at the top and side and cut that section out, or at least trace it. Once that's done, you can cut your pocket pieces out. Make sure that you finish the seams of your pockets, also around the sides and the bottoms of the skirt. To create the front pleats, you're going to pinch from the center and move it to the outer line. This creates a fold in the fabric, which creates this lovely pleat. Pinch and fold to join up those 2 lines. They should match together. Instructions: I recommend running a line of stitching down here as long as you would like it to be for your personal preference. I have given you a guide on the pattern, but this is up to you. You can also choose to not sew this down and instead baste this across the top, ready for the waistband to be attached. You can choose, if you'd like to do it the other way. That is personal preference. It still makes the same size skirt. So our front piece has been folded across this way, and we've taken off the pocket so that the facing fits on. This is what the pleats look like, just there along the pleat line. On the back, it looks like this. You can see there's a bit of a flappy part. That doesn't matter, it will all get caught up into the waistband. Each pocket needs 2 pieces, a facing and a full pocket piece. So if you're putting pockets on both sides of your skirt, you will need 4 pieces, 2 of the smaller cut and 2 of the larger. The large pocket piece is what you will see from the outside of the skirt. The rest is what creates the pocket bag that your hand actually goes into. The same thing for the pocket facing piece, except this time you're going to cut along here. Pocket pieces should be mirrored. You have directional or right side, wrong side fabric so that they can go on either side of your skirt. Each of these pocket pieces creates a pair. So this is the section that you will see on the outside of your garment. This section here, this becomes the pocket. So stay stitch this to make sure it doesn't stretch. So you're going to take pattern piece 4, but just the piece that's been cut, so the facing, and you're going to line this up with the top of the skirt, then sew across here. Iron the seam allowance up towards the pocket and then understitch across here, making sure that you're stitching the seam allowance to the pocket, not to the skirt. It gets really awkward around the corner, but once you flip it out, it's fine. Look really nice. Just got to move the fabric with the seam allowance. Now that you've understitched the seam allowance to the pocket, you can fold the pockets into the wrong sides so that the skirt will now look like this. Inside we'll have the stitching and it will be stitched down. So now that we have our pockets attached on one side, just to the top of the skirt here, now we need to add the other pocket pieces to make our skirt front complete. What we're going to do is place these back out again. Turn that around. Off the pocket bags. You're going to stitch from the top here around here and then back up to just before it attaches to the skirt. Both are sewn on, so you've left a gap here, that's fine, that will all be caught up in our side seam, so it doesn't matter. And now you can put them back down again and baste them down along the sides, which holds all parts of the pocket together with the front of the skirt. And then from the back, it will look like this. There's your pocket bags and your skirt, and just need to baste it down so this doesn't go flapping around. From now on, this is just the front panel. We're not worried about the pockets, they just happen to be there. So what we need to do now is we need to do our zip closure, if that's the one you're going to do. For this zip closure, it's a closed zip. This is the zip that I'm going to be using for this. It is 30 centimeters long. 25 centimeters is the smallest that I would recommend. This has quite the hip curve, this pattern, so you've got to make sure that you've got enough room to get the widest part of your body, that hip bum area, actually out of the skirt. If you're doing the adaptive, you can actually do zips on either side and make your back band longer or front, depending on what you want, so that it overlaps on both sides. At my skirt, this is my left side, so this is where I'm going to put my basting stitches for my zip. Put the skirt pieces together, right sides facing, wrong sides out. Along your side of your skirt, you have where you've marked for your zipper notches. From the top until that zipper notch, you're going to use your largest stitch length. This is a basting stitch. Don't go back and forth to secure it at the top. We're going to remove these stitches after our zip is put in. From here down is going to be regular stitches. We're going to back stitch just here, as well as at the bottom of the skirt here. After that, you need to press that seam open flat and we will put the zip in. I've got it over the top of my pressing ham. If you don't have a ham, then you can use like the edge of a couch or a rolled up towel, something like that, just so it's got that shape. This can be a little bit tricky, particularly when you're working at scale, but basically you're going to take your zip here and you're going to place it face down, right on top of those stitches that you just did. You want to make this approximately 1 centimetre down from the very top edge because that's how far in your waistband is going to be. But if it's a little bit lower, it's fine. You're just going to have a little hole. If a little bit higher, it's just going to be a little bit tricky and stuck. Better for it to be a little bit lower. Try to line your zip teeth and the zipper itself up with the very center of your seam. Once you have stitched down one side of the zip to that notch, or a little bit lower if you would like it to be a larger opening, then you're going to come across the zip teeth a couple of times to lock that spot into place. It doesn't matter how much extra zip you have hanging out here. Unless it annoys you, it doesn't matter that it's there. You're just going to stitch across there a couple of times and then come back up the other side. So now it's back to the sewing machine. Make sure that you put a zipper foot on your machine before you start sewing a zip. You might have trouble at the very top where you've got that zipper pull. You might need to leave just the top. Once you've taken out the basting stitches, you can pull the zipper pull down and you can redo that top section just to make sure everything's sitting where it's supposed to. Now the zipper tape is in. Okay, so you can see there are different jaggedy bits where I've started and stopped and moved the zip around. That's fine, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be seen in the end. You won't be using I hope you're not using contrasting thread. If you do better job. This, if I go in even closer, you can see it's a nice little box. Now what we need to do is get access to this zip. You're going to take a quick unpick or seam ripper. Then you're going to use the ball side down. And you're going to take out the stitches between the skirt. Have your zipper revealed to you. Like so. All done. Now we just need to do the other side of the skirt, the seam. That seam is just basic and simple. We just sew straight down using your normal stitch length, back stitch at the top and the bottom. Okay, now that the skirt back and front have been sewn together on either side to make a tube, we need to then add the waistband. For your waistband, you need to cut out 4 pieces of fabric. You also need 2 pieces of interfacing. You can choose to also have 4 if you'd like a really structured waistband, but 2 is just fine. Place your interfacing down onto that wrong side with the rough side, with those dots, down onto the fabric. So when you're feeling on top, it should be nice and soft. Then with a real iron, press, hold for, check the instructions on your actual interfacing for this part, but usually they're about somewhere between 10 to 15 seconds. And you want to have low or no steam. I think. I tend to find it makes it a bit slimy and things don't stick as well as they should. For this, you're going to have 2 long sides and then you need 2 short sides. If you want them to be, though, because of the adaptive options, that's not always true. For the regular waistband as it appears in the pattern, the short sides are the back and the long sides are the front. The front wraps around to the back and that's where you have your button. Then you're going to sew just the short side. You'll now have 2 matching waistbands, a short side and a long side. Depending on which way you're putting together your skirt, the short side will be the back and the long side will be the front. That is the basic way of doing it, so that the closure wraps around to the back. But you can do it the other way if you need to for accessibility needs or just because you like it better. One side will have your interfacing on it. It's best if the interfaced waistband section is on the outer part of the waistband and that the non-interfaced is on the side closest to your skin. What I'm going to do is place these right sides together, stitch all the way along one long edge from end to end. After sewing that, it got pressed outward. Pre-press the inside edge of the skirt. So that's this side. And we're just going to pre-press it in just by that 1 centimetre, just to make sure that there's definitely enough. So that we're going to attach this side here to the top of the skirt. Now that your waistband is in place, pinned to the top of your skirt, You're going to just sew from this zip all the way around and keep going until you're at the very end of the waistband, even though that comes off and it's not actually attaching the skirt to the waistband. That will be your guide for where to fold it up and in when you roll the whole waistband over. So we're going to press this seam allowance we've created up, and then this top part of the waistband is also pressed down, and then we're going to press it in half so that it creates this lovely waistband. Before we've sewn it, we're going to put the right sides together, and we're just going to finish off this seam here. This will all be encased all together. Trying to aim those stitches to be in line with the zip so that when you flip it the right side, it's the right size to fit right next to your zip. Then you have 3 options for finishing off the waistband. Have the right sides facing out and stitch in the ditch, which is just stitching right where that seam line is, and it should catch the back side, just provided that you stitch very straight and you hold it very straight. You can also just top stitch it, so you can look at the front or the back and just sew along that top. Or you can do what I'm going to do, which is to hand stitch that on. The stitches are going on an angle, in the bottom of the angle, up at the top, a little bit across. Trying to catch a couple of threads from the main fabric, as little as possible, and then a few threads again from your waistband fabric. Remember, this is not a construction seam, you've already constructed it. The waistband is attached perfectly at the front. This is just to make sure that it's whipped down, like just so it looks nice and so none of your seam allowances are on the outside.
Please consult your user manual for your sewing machine before you start making a buttonhole. Mine has an automatic buttonhole maker, so I'm going to use that. If you're not confident with those, you can actually also hand sew the button. I have a tutorial for this on my blog. Open up the button with a seam ripper. It's best if you put a pin at the top so that you don't go too far. The buttons are being stitched in with a simple cross stitch. They will then be finished in the traditional tailor's way at the back. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. You can also subscribe to my mailing list on my website so that you can stay up to date with all of my new pattern releases.
The bottom hem gets hemmed up by 1/2 centimetre and then 1.5 centimetres. Otherwise it is 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch.
And that is how you make the MORANA skirt. Thank you so much for sewing along with me and watching this tutorial, and also for fetching the pattern if you have, and if you haven't, head over to the website so you can.